The Crew Dragon.
The Crew Dragon.
To get us from Earth to low Earth orbit. The Crew Dragon, the Falcon 9 rocket into space. Crew Dragon, Crew Dragon, Crew Dragon, now here on the International Space Station.
Orbiting laboratory. Work is being done up there.
The International Space Station is outside the Earth's atmosphere in space. Tricky spacewalk. Astronaut on the International Space Station to help keep the space station running. Maybe you're working on the toilet to understand dark matter to space. Thawing out, human cells to return that science to Earth's microgravity laboratory. It's like 6,000 square feet up here in the International Space Station. There's a lot of other people up here. We're going to be here for 6 months. We're in it for the long haul, which is also very exciting.
Spacewalks and using tools in space.
The Artemis program.
The Artemis program.
The Artemis program and the work that we do right here on the International Space Station. Been an astronaut. Oh gosh, I'm just not going to be any good at that. Space station, we're looking back billions of light years. It's kind of mind-boggling.
To the space station.
I experienced some nausea.
How is sleeping in space?
Because you're just floating. It's not used to just floating. And so it does feel a little weird.
Floating up in space.
Our planet is 2/3 covered in ocean. Of course, I love to look out the window at our beautiful planet. It's lovely to look out the window and watch the world go by. Well, it's got to be floating. You can just kind of perch up on the wall. I can just hop over to the side and just find a nice little perch to sit on board the space station.
What does it smell like in space?
So that's an interesting question. So it smells like people up here. It's not really fresh air. When people went out to do a spacewalk and then came back inside, I smelled the smell of cooking meat. It smelled like hamburger to me, which was so strange. And that smell is the smell that space smells like hamburger. It smelled like hamburger to me, which was so strange. We have so much fun up here. It's just a great time up here. I smelled the smell of cooking meat, and we're getting paid for it.
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 Maybe you're working on the toilet. And so it does feel a little weird. Oh gosh, I'm just not going to be any good at that. And we're getting paid for it, 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 paid for it. I smelled the smell of cooking meat. It's kind of mind-boggling. And we're getting paid for it, paid for it.
The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is.
Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beasts might stand before him. Neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram. And he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him down to the ground, and stamped upon him. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south, and toward the east, and toward the pleasant land. And it waxed great, even to the host of heaven. And it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn. In this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things.
Version 1 spacecraft up there, and we're now about to fly sort of version 2 and version 3. And with each one, we're able to make the reusability of the heat shield better. So
it
it ablates less as it enters, and so we're able to get more flights. So that's Dragon version 2.
I beheld then, because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes, and a mouth that spake very great things. In this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things.
So I'm sitting here in the pilot seat. Pull it down.